Alright guys, so today I got some information, the latest information on what's going on with these 3.5 liter Ecoboost engines in the F150s. They're the ones that seem to be the most problem prone compared to any other Ecoboost that Ford is putting in any other models. And what it has to do with mainly is the misfires. When you go to pass someone on the road, especially in damp conditions, rain, severe fog, stuff like that. And what it has to do with is the charge air cooler here basically cooling the air down too much, and then it forms lots of water in there, and when it gets to be so much in there, it starts passing that water in droplet form instead of vaporized out through. And then the way the intake's designed on here, it all pulls up on this bank, which is bank 2, 4, 5, and 6 will get lots of water, so it'll cause misfires. And they'll misfire actually so bad that it'll send raw fuel down to the cat and melt that cat quite quick. So what they have is a couple different TSBs out for it. The first one included a reflash, and then they wanted you to put on this one right here. This ear deflector is stock on all of them. What they wanted you to do was put on an ear deflector like this one. That's the front of it. Let's focus. The other one goes over, you can see right there, I just showed you. And then there's this one, and that blocks even more airflow. What I think they're trying to do is raise the temperature inside of there so these droplets never basically form. Not such a temp drop in there. And then they released the revised charge air cooler itself, and that was engineering number 8E. This one you can see is original still, and is AC. So on this most recent TSB, which is August of 2013, they have you putting on a new cooler altogether, and taking this old shield that was put on the last TSB, if you didn't change the cooler out, taking that off and throwing it away. Now they want you to put a big old plastic shield on, looks like almost half of the cooler, to raise the temps even more. But they don't want you using this blocker plate with the AE cooler, because then temps would get too high. This is a better picture of it installed. And then of course they got you doing a reflash again. And basically what I'm trying to say with all this is that it's a process, it's in the works. They're working on the calibrations, they're working on different plates to cover more or less of the charge air cooler and try to get that water vaporized instead of becoming droplets. Now if you've had the charge air cooler updated, the reflash done, everything is all fixed up, and you're still having misfires, what we're starting to see on the Ecoboost, since they're getting a little bit of age on, 60,000 or more, is we're seeing cracks in the spark plugs. This one, let's see if we can get focused. You could see it right there, carbon tracking. That's a regular one. Normal. And it's not carbon tracking from the top of the plug tip here down. It's an actual crack, and that's where the spark is exiting, instead of down here where the regular ground electrode strap is at. It's not going for that and jumping, it's coming out here. And the reason it's doing that is because if the plug is cracked and it has that exit, easier exit out to ground, it's going to follow that path and then have those carbon tracks on there from the high voltage, and it's going to avoid the ground that's down the cylinder, because that one is in a high pressure zone with the turbo and all that stuff. So the higher pressure is the higher resistance to ground. So it's going to take the easy path out. Now also what is happening is the actual center electrode tip is wearing on these early. These are 100,000 mile plugs. At 60,000 we're starting to see them be worn down enough to cause misfires also. The gap is just too big, and the gap being too big and then fighting those pressures in the forced induction system like this, it's going to misfire. So this one had 72,000 on it when I changed plugs. This one I found cracked. It had a cylinder, one misfire, intermittent, and it's been a couple other shops and they couldn't figure it out. I figured it out and found the carbon tracking. It was more evident maybe when I got it, and the customer actually was out of warranty, so he opted to get all 6 of them changed, which is a smart move considering these ones I checked the gap on them and they're around 44 thousandths right now. Spec is 31 thousandths, and there's no plus or minus on that from in the spec manual, whereas the usual plug may have a plus or minus of 3 thousandths. These ones say 31 or nothing. So if it's that tight a tolerance already, and now we're jumping to 44 thousandths, 45 thousandths, you can see how under certain conditions and pressures, and we could have intermittent misfire when you most need it to perform. One more note on this cracking of the porcelain on these spark plugs. I haven't seen this in a long time. We're starting to see it now with EcoBoost engines and the higher pressure from the turbocharged engines. I saw it on a 2013 Fusion, had about 3,000 miles on it. Could not believe it had a misfire. It was intermittent. They were traveling cross country, moving, and I decided to check out the plugs, and that one had 2, was it 4-cylinder? So it had at least 2 out of the 4 had carbon tracking. Not as bad as this one. This one's coming out pretty good. But they had carbon tracking from cracked porcelain already. So it is an issue, and not just with the higher mileage ones. And like I said, it's best to attack it when you first notice it, instead of letting other damage occur. So that is about it. I just want to go over the different things we're fighting here at the dealers, and Ford's still figuring out. And if you are having problems, to take a look at your cooler, see what kind of deflectors on here you have. This one's stock, and then this one was right here was an add-on for a TSB, and the one that's way down here towards the bottom and covering all of this and is stuck to it with glue, that one is the latest one, and that one should only be on an AC cooler like this one, original. Now the reason it's very important is because, as I said, these trucks are getting higher in mileage. They're usually work trucks and all that, and 80,000 is where the emissions warranty stops for the catalytic converters. And as soon as you have cylinders misfiring on here, these things eat up cats big time, and then your cats aren't working. So that can get real expensive real quick, and it's worth it to take your time and check over these few items on here in case you're having any troubles that the shop cannot figure out, and get your truck back up and running to where it performs when you need it, and make sure there's no cat damage or engine damage based on multiple misfires where you start getting that flashing check engine light.